Work study. Yes, work study is one of the foremost techniques of scientific management in an organization. Understand, when an organization tries to scientifically manage, it has to have some methods. So one of the first method I see is work study. So what management should do? Before allocating any work to the worker, they should do a thorough work study of that work. Work study means an organized, systematic, and critically assessing of every activity of the work. Let us understand. These work study involve various techniques like time study, method study, motion study, and fatigue study. So before going into all these time studies, method studies, motion studies, and fatigue studies, understand the very purpose of work study is how the work will be performed. First, the management should understand that how much time it requires to finish the task. What is the best method? How the movement of the employees or material should be handled. And in doing all this, how should I ensure the efficiency of the employees? That is to understand the fatigue level involved in the work. Now, once I understand all these, the basic purpose of understanding time study or method study or motion study or fatigue study is basically to improve the efficiency, reduce the wastage, control the timeline, and achieve the objective of the organization in given timeline. So, in simple word, for basic utilization of resources, or I would say maximum or optimum utilization of resources, work study is done. Now, there are critical aspects of it. One, it is a systematic study. Yes, how the whole work will be performed, step by step, systematically studies. It is well organized. So whenever I try to understand a work study, now what are the things to be done? Before the work start, what are the things should be available? During the work, what are the things should be there? How the things will be moved and how the output will be processed and what are the things required. So everything is well organized and critically assessed. So I assessed every step critically. Let us understand this with an example. Well, I would love to quote you this example from my real life story that I was working with Milton Plastic as a research and development engineer. There was a concept called as SMED, single minute exchange of dies. So earlier, this Milton Plastics, I hope you're aware, they are into manufacturing of water bottle, casserole, water jugs, and so on and so forth. Many products, very well-known company in India. So they are basically into plastic molding of things. So what happens in case of plastic molding, the whole product is made with different parts, and every part is molded. So for every part, there is a die. So for first production of die, you have one die. Then for second part, you have another die, and so on and so forth. Now, earlier, what used to happen without work study, the whole process. Now, let's say if I want to make a jug. So in jug, there is an outer body, then there is a lead, then there is a handle, and all sort of things. So when I'm making outer body, once the outer body is done, I need to make what? Handles. I need to make the leads and all sort of things. So from body to handle, I need to change the die. The die through which the plastic is forced and molded into the shape. So from one product to other product, the die changing process that is called as a die exchange used to take earlier 2 days. Reason, the whole process has not been studied well. The work study has not been done. So first, why it has happened? There was no any systematicness. So what management did? They appointed a consultant who did what? Work study of the whole process. And this 2 days of delay of the same production has been brought to below 1 minute. That is single minute exchange of dies. And everywhere different methodologies like time study, method study, motion study, and fatigue study has been studied. Let us dwell into it. That what has happened, a lot of wastage has reduced. Time wastage, material wastage, resource wastage has been reduced. Automatically profitability increases. Also, fatigue has reduced because now employers know that, okay, I want to get things from here. So automatically things started working fast, productivity improved. So automatically one of the scientific method to get good output is, yes, to study work. So work study is a scientific method. It has 4 components. First is time study. As the name suggests, for any work to be done, first time study is studied. Now, what do you mean by time study? How much time is required to finish this task? Now, from person to person, time may change. So, this time study has to be critically done and averaged out for many observations. So, critical observation of time required to finish a task and then arriving at a standard time required to finish the task has been done. Now, advantage of time study. Now I understand that for this task, this much is the standard time. First, my control of the production improves. My wastage of time and study of the employee's efficiency also improves. I'll explain all these terminologies. See, let us understand. With time study, I know that production of these watches requires 20 minutes. And an employee comes and he does it in 45 minutes. The manager has a right to say, boss, we can finish it in 20 minutes. You are taking 45 minutes. You are slow. Immediately, the employee becomes attentive and understand that he is wasting a lot of time. He is lazy. So the control of management increases. Right? So with 20 minutes, I know in an 8-hour shift how much they can produce, around 24. So the target is given of around 25 products. So automatically efficiency output increases. So time study helps in reducing wastage of time, better employee controls, and standard management or improving the productivity of the system. So what time study does is helps understand study standard time required to finish a task. The second method, which comes under work study for scientific management, is method study. Understand, to finish any task, there are a lot of methods. I'll give an example. Let's say my father told me to go to Gandhi Garden, which is there in my city. I know there are 5 ways to reach. Way number 1, way number 2, way number 3. But how do I know? I went through all of them. But next time my father tells me, I'll go with the best route. So what does it mean? In method study, though it is very challenging task for managers try to adopt the optimum, the best method, which will require less time, less wastage, and higher output, qualitative output. But yes, to identify a best method, it's a challenging task for management. Method study are generally used for various sectors like transportation, dispatch, packaging, and so on and so forth. The advantage of method study, yes, it reduces time, it reduces wastage, it enhances the profitability and efficiency of the organization. The example which I quoted for SMAD, the amazing method what they have did is, earlier worker who wants to change the die used to go and spend around 20, 30, 1 hour finding just the crane which will take this die from here and dump it to a die shed where all dies are kept. Right? But with this study of method, now this operator is not leaving the machine. They have appointed another person who will go to the die room, along with the crane, and then get that die to the machine itself. So this worker does not spend a lot of time. So automatically the method of working has changed. Method study. It reduces the wastage of time, wastage of resources, enhances profitability. Another is motion study. Well, motion study is related to movement of employees and materials. Motion studies are done to identify if any motion is there for unnecessary, or can we alter the steps in order for smooth functioning of the things. So motion studies basically deals with movement of humans and materials, where the study is basically targeted towards identifying that is there any unnecessary movement happening for the movement of even people or materials, or can we change the process of working so that the work will flow smoothly. I'll give you an example. Let's say I have a salesperson. So I ask them to do sales of my goods and report to me. So what does he do? He goes to a place called as Jalgaon, do sales there, again come back to my head office, then go to the next place which is nearer to Jalgaon, Bhusawal, then come back next day. Then he goes to the next place, Malkapur, then come back to again head office. Then he goes to Akola, then he comes back to head office. Now what has happened? On the same route, there is a Jalgaon. So he goes to Jalgaon, head office to Jalgaon, again come back. Then he goes to Bhusawal via Jalgaon, again come back. Then he goes to Malkapur via Jalgaon, Bhusawal, and then come back. Then he goes to Akola. So there is an unnecessary movement of coming back. So with motion study, what I understand, once my employee go for sales, I'll ensure that he need not have to come back for payment. I'll ask him to submit the payment in the bank itself. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Suddenly what has happened? He'll go to Jalgaon, he's not coming back. From Jalgaon, he'll go onwards. So a lot of time, energy and cost has been reduced. So with motion study, what we try to do, we try to avoid unnecessary movements. Movements of personnel, movements of resources, material. We try to find alternative methods, and not only that, we try to eliminate motions which are unnecessary. Right? Similar example, I'll come back to that SMED example, single minute exchange of die. In that, there was a movement of employee to find out the crane. So the employee, once he finished the production of one part, used to first go across the company, find out where is the overhead crane, so that he'll come and pick up the product and put it into die section. What we'll do, he'll first move to the next machine, talk to the next worker, then go there, talk to salesperson, go to there, talk to accountant. In that process, he end up spending 1 to 3 hours. This whole motion or movement was unnecessary. What they did, they appointed a person who will ensure that the die will come to the worker's place directly. He need not have to go around and find it. That was motion study, to reduce wastage of time and control wastage of material and finding a smooth flow of working. Apart from that, there is a fatigue study. So what do you mean by fatigue? Well, fatigue is tiredness or weakness. So what happens if there are, let's say, long working hours without break, unhealthy working conditions, heavy tools around you, right? Lot of stress, physical, mental stress. In simple words, fatigue creeps in. So when you're physically, mentally tired, what happens? Will you perform at your efficiency, 100% efficiency? No. So the efficiency of employees goes down because of the fatigue. The excessive pressure of achieving the target, long working hours without break, all these affects your efficiency. So sufficient breaks, sufficient conditions, sufficient services should be provided where employees does not feel fatigue, and they re-energize themselves and ensures that they constantly perform at their highest efficiency. One of the simple example of reducing the employees' fatigue is to give them a party, just to ensure that their morals are always keep high, or ask them to take away for a picnic, so that they're in the picnic they reduce or forget all their stress, and again next day they come back with full energy. Well, work study is one of the methods of scientific management. Every management, before allocating the work, should do a thorough work study of the work to be allocated to their workers. This work study must consist of organized, systematic, and critically assessed activities involved in the work. The very purpose of work study is to avoid wastage, reduce time, efficient utilization of resources, reduce fatigue and all. There are various aspects of work study, or various things we do in work study, starting with time study, method study, motion study, and fatigue study. In time study, what we do, we try to calculate the standard time required to finish any task. The advantage of time study is to have a better control over employees, improve the employee output level, and achieve organization's target. In case of method study, I hope you are aware that any task can be done in many ways. So method study, to find out the best method, is a very challenging task for management. But with proper method, you reduce lot of wastage, you reduce lot of time, and automatically the profitability of the organization increases. With motion study, the basic purpose of motion study is to avoid unnecessary movement of human, that is personnel and material. So movement of personnel material has been avoided with motion studies. There is a constant and critical examining of every stages of the activity, and they identify that is this activity is necessary or not. If the activity is not necessary, they are removed. Only necessary activities are performed. That is studied under motion study. Then last but not the least, fatigue study. Well, fatigue is a stress, a weakness, a tiredness creeping due to long working hours, excessive work pressure, unhygienic working conditions, or utilization of heavy tools and all. This leads to reduced inefficiency. So fatigue study helps identify the areas or steps where the fatigue has been creeping and the method by which we can reduce the fatigue so that employees constantly working with their higher level of efficiency and the output will be higher. In simple word, work study aims at reducing wastages in terms of time, material, resources. It helps us manage a better control on its output and achieving organization's target.